Ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. Tonight on News First, a historic day for Kiwis with the most aggressive form of breast cancer. Pharmac says it'll fund Keytruda. In Britain, a Labour landslide ends 15 years of Conservative Party rule and Sir Keir Starmer becomes PM. And Joe Biden tells Democratic leaders he's staying in the race, he's just tired.
This is News First at 5:30.
Keytruda has long been hailed as a miracle drug, and now it could help dozens of women with the most aggressive form of breast cancer. For years, advocates have been calling for the medicine to be funded. Now, Pharmac has indicated that could happen as early as October. Here's Leighton Hakel.
For years, they've fought for better access to cancer drugs that'll save their lives. And now, after the government's funding boost for Pharmac, hundreds of Kiwi cancer sufferers could be about to benefit. And while it's a momentous day for the community, not everyone's here to see it.
A day like today, my mind goes back to those patients who are no longer with us, who really wanted to see some of these medicines funded, in particular those with Lynch syndrome, as well as those with head and neck cancer.
The drug buying agency has announced, pending a consultation, Keytruda will be the first drug funded from October 1st. It will be used to treat advanced triple-negative breast cancer, head and neck cancer, colorectal cancer, bladder cancer and Hodgkin's lymphoma, while Opdivo will be funded for kidney cancer from November.
And when you see drugs like Keytruda being available very, very shortly, fully funded, available to New Zealanders who desperately need them, I'm really excited about it. That's one of the great achievements, I think, and something I feel very, very proud about.
The Minister in charge of Pharmac, David Seymour, says the agency has moved fast.
Even I'm a little bit surprised they've managed to do it this quickly. It's very impressive and it speaks of good things to come.
When it comes to advanced triple-negative breast cancer, today's announcement is being celebrated. It's expected to help 30 women in the first year, but the Breast Cancer Foundation estimates a further 300 could benefit if the drug was funded for early stage as well.
Really happy and satisfied that this has got over the line, and of course we have to pause and take time to celebrate this. But there's so much more that needs to be funded as well.
And while the government has invested a lot into Pharmac, David Seymour won't rule out even more.
The hope is we can prove funding more medicines saves the taxpayer in other ways, such as fewer hospital visits. And if we can do that, we may be able to justify spending even more on medicines.
Feeling great about this, but hoping for more, and that will require another budget uplift.
So even more people can benefit from these life-saving drugs. Leighton Hakel, News First.
Labour has won the British general election in a landslide, marking an historic day in British politics. Sir Keir Starmer's centre-left party will return to power with a huge majority after 14 years under the Conservatives. Some Tory ministers have lost their seats, but controversial politician Nigel Farage is finally a Member of Parliament at his 8th attempt. Here's Europe correspondent Lisette Raymer.
Some Brits have waited years for these final seconds. Big Ben hit 10 p.m. and the countdown to change was complete.
Oh my God.
Commentators were speechless and breathless.
A Labour landslide.
And the public sigh of relief quickly morphed into song.
Tories out! Tories out!
The tectonic plates of British politics shifting after 14 years of turbulence and turmoil, defined by Brexit and COVID, but ultimately the Conservatives.
The exit poll is just amazing. I mean, 14 years of Tory chaos and we are finally out of it, and we are out of it with a huge bang.
In the last 8 years, there have been 5 UK Prime Ministers. The revolving door of number 10 welcoming and farewelling blooper-prone Prime Ministers.
Forgive me. Forgive me.
And the shortest serving ever.
I am resigning.
The latest turfed out Rishi Sunak, a man richer than King Charles, paying the price for over a decade of Tory troubles, now responsible for the party's worst election result in more than a century.
The British people have delivered a sobering verdict tonight. There is much to learn and reflect on. and I take responsibility for the loss.
Sir Keir Starmer's move into Downing Street has been viewed by most as a foregone conclusion. The change in power has appeared inevitable for months, if not years. Today's result was so predictable, I was able to confidently film this weeks in advance before flying home to New Zealand. A former chief prosecutor and human rights lawyer, the 61-year-old only entered Parliament in 2015. Now he's ready to form a government.
You have voted. It is now time for us to deliver.
A Prime Minister with an enormous party majority and an even bigger to-do list. Lysia Raymer, News First.
An American man who tried to intervene in the fatal hit and run of a New Zealand woman has recalled being shot at as the offenders fled in a vehicle. Patricia Mackay died after being struck by a getaway vehicle following a botched robbery outside a shopping mall in the California city of Newport. The local mayor, Will O'Neill, says it should never have happened. Zane Small has that story.
Rest in heaven, Patricia Mackay. A memorial for the 68-year-old New Zealander at the California mall where she was killed earlier this week. She was holidaying there with her husband Doug, who served on the board of BNZ for over a decade.
When I walked up, it was just a dead body laying in the ground.
The pair were at a shopping centre in the city of Newport when they were robbed at gunpoint by two men.
There was a struggle and they were attempting to rob them.
Patricia died after being hit by a car driven by a third offender. An eyewitness who intervened spoke to Radio New Zealand.
That poor woman was out in the middle of the street basically fighting with two guys over her purse, and I was still a ways kind of down the street, several hundred feet. So when I saw that, something said, you got, like, she's going 2v1. That could be someone's mom, someone's grandma, it could be mine,
Newport police said one suspect fired a handgun 3 times.
I tried to get the one guy that was getting into the car, and we both went down, and we were both running for the car now at this point. He was trying to get in the car, I was trying to get him, and that's when their buddy started shooting at me.
The suspects were then filmed fleeing down the highway in a white vehicle. The cameras were still rolling from above as the offenders run for cover and try to hide until they're cornered by police and arrested. 3 men aged between 18 and 26 were charged with homicide, robbery and firearms offences.
Frankly, to hell with these guys. They came into our city knowing that they were going to commit crime, and a woman is dead today because of it.
In an email to us today, Newport Mayor William O'Neill said he's devastated for the Mackay family and he'll continue to work with them through this, quote, horrific time. A spokesperson for the family said words cannot describe their sadness as they try to come to terms with the loss of a mother, a wife and a friend. Zane Small, News First.
New recommendations for primary schools show learning on screens should be limited to up to a third of the school day. Kiwi children are among the highest in the world for their screen usage, with excessive screen use being linked to a host of negative health outcomes. But AUT's Scott Duncan says there is a place for screens in our classrooms.
What we don't want to see is that kids are spending 5-6 hours at school on a screen, then coming home to another 5 or 6 hours. So in other words, there's very little time off a screen.
Daily screen use of 2 to 6 hours a day is linked to poorer eye health, hearing loss and repetitive strain injuries. Joe Biden has told Democratic governors he plans to cut back on events that go past 8 p.m. because he needs more sleep. It comes as Donald Trump was filmed going on a profanity-laden rant about the president and his running mate. Here's Scott MacFarlane of CBS.
Amid a sweltering holiday celebration at the White House,
Happy Independence Day!
President Biden is trying to cool the intensifying political heat. Another major donor, Netflix co-founder Reed Hastings, is publicly urging the president to withdraw. New York mega-donor Whitney Tilson has already done the same.
The ship has sailed.
A handful of House Democrats expressed deep concern about the race, including Massachusetts Congressman Seth Moulton, who called on President Biden to step aside.
Now is the time for him to follow in one of our founding fathers, George Washington's footsteps, and step aside to let new leaders rise up and run against Donald Trump.
In 2 radio interviews,
I made a mistake.
The president acknowledged the debate failure, while the White House staff reversed this statement made yesterday.
He hasn't had any kind of medical exam. No.
Acknowledging the president was seen by a doctor to check on his cold after his halting performance on stage last Thursday. Multiple sources tell CBS News at a meeting with Democratic governors Wednesday night, the president said he needs to curtail events that begin after 8 p.m. and that he needs to sleep more. At a July 4th parade in his district, Congressman Jamie Raskin said a decision needs to be made soon.
I mean, it's really not up to me. So I'm just standing strong for democracy, regardless of who's at the top of the ticket, because democracy is not about one person, it's about everybody.
While Democratic voters said they're worried the president's debate risks overshadowing the party's deep fears about Donald Trump.
They both suck, to be perfectly frank.
As new video surfaced of Trump on the golf course, crudely blasting the president and Vice President Kamala Harris.
Look at that old broken down pile of yeah, it's a bad guy. He just quit, you know, he's quitting the race. Is that right? Yep, I got him out of the race. And that means we have Kamala. I think she's going to be better. She's so bad. She's so pathetic.
And predicting President Biden will quit.
Still to come on News First, the Southland mental health workers needing counselling sessions of their own to deal with work stress. And the oldest painting in history, rock art, more than 50,000 years old. News First can reveal health workers in Southland, including mental health staff, have been given access to counselling sessions to deal with the stress of a hiring freeze. It comes the day after the government set itself targets to improve mental health services. Political reporter Amelia Wade has the latest.
Yesterday, a Prime Ministerial promise to improve the state of our mental health services.
As Prime Minister, improving mental health services in New Zealand is a major focus for my government.
But right now, the health system is in a hiring freeze on all non-frontline roles.
What's happened there is that there's no blanket freeze. What it is that the actual decisions about local hiring has actually been given and devolved back to the local health authorities so they can actually tailor it to the regions that they're in, rather than doing that centrally out of Wellington.
The process is taking its toll on staff. News First's obtained an email from the head of Health NZ Southern Group Director Hamish Brown telling staff to seek support if they need it through provided counselling sessions.
We have a fantastic people in our healthcare system, and it's often the system that's let them down, and that's why I want to see better delivery, better support, better focus of frontline services in our healthcare system.
A Southern mental health worker who wanted anonymity called the counselling sessions laughable and said the line that frontline services were not affected by the hiring freeze was a blatant lie.
It looks like a lot of gaslighting going on from senior management and ministers saying that there's no frontline cuts.
Be really clear, this is a government that is spending more on health than we've ever spent before. We are determined to make sure we have a world-class healthcare system. We know it's complex, we know we've got workforce challenges.
In a statement, Health NZ reiterated the pause on hiring did not affect patient-facing positions and said that thousands of clinical roles continued to be hired. Amelia Wade, News First.
Buildings have been destroyed and more than 400,000 people left without power after Hurricane Beryl hit Jamaica. The Category 5 storm brought with it winds of up to 210 kilometres an hour, with at least 10 people known to have died across the Caribbean. The storm is expected to reach Mexico tonight. Efforts by mainstream parties to block the rise of the far right in France appear to be working. Polling projections suggest Marine Le Pen's party will fall short of an absolute majority. The National Rally leader isn't perturbed, though, saying she'll reach out to other parties. 30,000 police officers will be deployed across the country on Sunday to prevent unrest as the final round of voting gets underway. A US airline has apologised for serving passengers mouldy food mid-air for the second day in a row. Delta has pulled some meals from its service after passengers became ill eating contaminated chicken. Chris Van Cleve of CBS with that story.
Spoiled supper. Newly obtained images appear to show the chicken a la mold that somehow got onto Delta Flight 136. After some passengers were served bad food, the flight from Detroit to Amsterdam made an emergency landing in New York Wednesday morning.
Howard, can you confirm the status of medical personnel at our gate?
They should be standing by.
It wasn't good.
These passengers were on board.
There was these like 2 black spots that almost looked like burnt cheese. And I thought it was just something different. And I guess that turned out to be the black mold.
One girl said that she did eat the chicken and she didn't finish it because it tasted really, really sour.
Delta 136, can you confirm that none of the pilots ate any of the food?
The pilots were fine, but at least 12 passengers were evaluated by paramedics at JFK Airport. None were taken to the hospital. But for the second day in a row, Delta has pulled all meals except a pasta dish from the economy cabin on 75 international flights as a precaution. The airline says it is investigating and sincerely apologizes to the passengers, who are all offered compensation and rebooked on later flights.
Now, they say a picture tells 1,000 words, and that was certainly the case around 51,000 years ago. Archaeologists have found the world's oldest known picture story in a cave on a remote island in Indonesia. It shows a pig standing still with its mouth partly open and at least 3 human-like figures. The picture's almost 6,000 years older than the previous record holder. Just ahead on News First, a final farewell and Scott Barrett bringing a new style to an old team. We join his first captain's run ahead of this weekend's England Test.
Look swiftly, live swiftly with a new Suzuki Swift and News First Sport.
Now, Scott Barrett is a new man in an old job and with a team keen to make an early impression on its new coach. But he's also a man who hasn't played a game of rugby in a couple of months, and tomorrow night's test against England will offer a multitude of challenges. Rugby reporter Ollie Ritchie has more.
Scott Barrett taking a moment to soak it all in. His first All Blacks captain's run in the books. He's gone about his business as usual. He's a quiet leader, but he's making his presence felt as All Blacks captain by not doing it alone.
I guess trusting the 22 guys around me that they're going to do the job, and I've got to do my job as well.
Barrett will lead an All Blacks team that's not necessarily new in look, but certainly has a new feel. Scott Robertson has made his mark on the group from day one. Barrett is eager to soak in his first test as captain.
But I think that's what I'm reminding myself, is to enjoy the occasion. Never losing the fact of why we play the game.
While it's a new era for the All Blacks and a first look at how this side might play, England are at the end of their season, but they're not buying the hype. They're primed for an upset.
That's all to take pressure off New Zealand. Look, to beat New Zealand, you've got to be at your best. They're a very good team, and I think we sit in this room that you would believe that they're the favourites. So as much as you say there's short preparation time, this is the best chance, whatever, I think you understand the challenge in front of us.
Whether they can cause an upset or not, the tourists are excited by a rare chance to play the All Blacks in New Zealand.
It's not like Six Nations where you get this opportunity every single year. Some players who've got many caps have not played New Zealand before, so I think there's an underlying excitement about this experience.
One the All Blacks are out to ensure won't be a memorable one. Ollie Ritchie, News First.
The Tall Blacks' Olympic dream has been crushed by Slovenia. NBA star Luka Doncic proved too hot for the Tall Blacks at the last gasp qualifying event overnight. The 2-metre-tall Doncic slotting 36 points as Slovenia ran out comfortable winners 104-78 to end New Zealand's hopes of a spot in Paris.
Back to Doncic. And Doncic drills the 3 right at the end of the quarter. Wow.
It's been 20 years since the Tall Blacks played at the Olympics. And the New Zealand Breakers have appointed their new head coach, Petteri Koponen. He joins the club following a stint in the NBA Summer League as assistant coach with the San Antonio Spurs. He only retired from playing 2 years ago and has since coached in the Euro League. Breakers owner Matt Walsh has described Koponen as one of the best young coaches in the world. Now, Andy Murray has bid an emotional farewell to Wimbledon, the tournament he won in 2013, to end a 77-year wait for a British men's champion. The 3-time Grand Slam winners played his last game on the famed centre court, playing one final grass court doubles game with his brother Jamie.
Quick too, my kids are up there and it's like way past their bedtime, so I won't keep you long.
Murray won 3 Grand Slam titles, including Wimbledon twice. Now, you will know by now that this is First at 5:30's final broadcast. Since they'll be turning off my microphone in a few minutes anyway, I will by necessity keep this brief. There's been a lot written and even more said over the past few months about what is about to happen in the next 62 minutes, the end of News First and then the closure of Newshub. But the reality is that television news is and has always been about the people. So, to all of the producers of all of the shows that I've been a part of in the past 3.5 decades, firstly, I am sorry, but mostly I am grateful. To everyone in every newsroom and studio that I've worked in, thank you. I am grateful for your friendship, but also your kindness. Television, and especially television news, is a magical place, and I'm grateful to have worked with and sat next to some of the greats of our business. I won't name names because to start means never to finish, but please understand, this has been quite a ride, and I think I get off it a much better human than when I got on it in 1989. Prime News, as it was then called, relaunched in 2006 with, from memory, 2.5 minutes of black, just what felt like an eternity of nothing. We end 18 years later, better, I think, at filling the gaps. Now, in a few moments, they'll turn out the lights for the final time, but before they do, I also just wanted to thank you, our audience, for always making us feel like what we did mattered, because it did. And regardless of what the accountants might say, it still does. It was a genuine privilege to be invited into your homes at 5:30 every night, and for that, I am truly grateful. To my wife, Michelle, and to my best boy, Alfie, I am grateful for your love and also your support. And with that, until next time, whenever that might be, e noho rā. Goodbye.